again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Koberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Phil J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel, and also welcome everybody on Jennifer Coffindaffer's channel. We'll be bringing her on here in a moment. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and kind of give everybody a little bit of a intro into what we're going to be doing tonight. We'll be talking about the Nancy Guthrie abduction. She's still missing after over 100 days. There's some information that has come out, and we're going to talk about that and a little bit more. But first, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell if you guys would. Without further ado, let's bring on our guest tonight, former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing great. How are you, Daniel? Always good to be here.
I'm doing well. Just kind of today was my day off, so I enjoyed that. It was a bit of a rest. It's been kind of, crazy at work. So I've been putting in a lot of hours, so it's good to be off for a day or so. How have you been?
I've been definitely drinking from a fire hose. And so I can see it coming in about August. I think I'm going to be caught up. So until then, I'm just going to feel a little bit miscombobulated. A lot of travel, a lot of work. But always happy to be here.
Well, good to see you, and glad you can join us again. And tonight, kind of a few things I wanted to talk to you about. First thing, though, well, let's kind of get into it. Let's talk about the abduction. Let me pull up my screen here, and there's an article here saying that Savannah still believes Nancy can be found as her mom suspects. Name is finally identified. I only got to read a little bit. I didn't see anything about anybody being identified, but it goes on to say here, Savannah is paying whatever it is to keep the search active. That she refuses to rely solely on law enforcement. Guthrie's reported formed a team of private investigators, including former federal agents, security specialists who are working to track down leads related to Nancy's alleged abduction. And so does this kind of give you maybe perhaps the thought process that there's a little bit of lack of trust in the Pima County Sheriff's Department and in the investigation if she's going out and spending, I think I saw another article, over $500,000 in private investigators to investigate this crime? How does that reflect to you?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think she has lost her confidence in the police investigation, at least to a degree. But I have to say, because this is sourced, information, but now I'm seeing it come out in 3 different areas, I temper it because I know how source information goes, and I've been calling it out right and left. And, people have been retracting some statements, and basically it's always the telephone game. Right? A source tells somebody, and then that somebody has some link to somebody who knows a podcaster or who, has a, connection with the media in some way. So I always temper it, but still, I think it might ring true that she has hired folks. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I would do it. I would feel like after 30 days or so, I would say, what is going on here? And then knowing what happens in these investigations. But I agree. I think it tells you that she's lost some confidence in the investigation, and she's not even talking to Nanos anymore. And that's what Nanos says. So he's not going to cough up that if it isn't true, because it's so disparaging against him.
That is something that, why do you think he would come out with that information? Do you think maybe perhaps he was afraid something like this was on the horizon, that she did have, private investigators, and that people were going to start asking questions, so he tried to get ahead of it? That's the only thing I can see. What are your thoughts on why Nanos would bring that out to light?
You know what I think? I mean, it's like when we do investigations and we arrest somebody or go to talk to somebody and they make these spontaneous utterances. We've seen so many of these spontaneous utterances. Oh, it was about 11 o'clock. Oh, I was out there Saturday night. Those are two that just jump off the page as being inaccurate that he said. And then one time he said, no, it was Sunday afternoon. I'm sorry, Sunday night. Before we were notified. I mean, he's just been all over the board with sort of these spontaneous utterances. And I truly think that that's what that was. I think he's talked to that reporter and he says, geez, I'm not even talking to the Guthries anymore.
Mhm.
And then, he's probably like, oh, I wish I could rewind that back.
That's probably what it is. You're probably right on. And it's unfortunate. I mean, when and I know you've been a part of a lot of investigations. Have you ever been in an investigation where you weren't talking to victims' family members?
Never. Really, in the FBI, we feel like we really work for them. I know that sounds odd, but I think part of what really drives us, especially in a missing case, is the number one thing is that victim. And then secondarily to that is that victim family. We hold them in almost a bizarre esteem, that we really respect how they're feeling, what they're going through, because we're really working for them in a sense whenever it comes to a case and trying to bring them some answers.
Yeah, I found it so weird. It's so odd, and it just kind of screams out, maybe perhaps there's some turmoil, maybe perhaps there's some blame there, and they're wanting to distance themselves. The only time that I've heard about it happening was with maybe perhaps Moscow and the Gonzalez family in in the case against Brian Koberger, where in the Gonzalez's were maybe perhaps speaking out more than what law enforcement was wanting them to speak out on. But I don't see any of that happening in this case. I think the Guthrie family has been nothing but cooperative, from what I've heard. Um, could that be an avenue why they don't talk? Could it be because they're not cooperative anymore?
Typically, I don't think so. Typically, the families keep bothering law enforcement. What's going on? Where are we at? We need information. We want to know what's going on. And so law enforcement, this happened in Sebastian Rogers, will kind of cut everybody off and say, we're not telling you guys anything anymore.
Right.
Everything has to be in writing, and we're not going to tell you all anything about what's going on. Of course, in Sebastian Rogers, that case is cold as ice. But nevertheless, that's usually why there tends to be sort of a chasm between the victim family and law enforcement. And then the other chasm is caused exactly what you said, like when the Gonsalves family, where law enforcement believed that anything they said to them was going to be on the wire. Social media, mainstream, he was going to be out there talking about it. So they cut them off because of that issue. And I tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see if we can mark this day. I might be wrong, but on the 28th of May, bookmark it. I would not be surprised at some point, some frustration coming out in the vein of how the Gonsalveses were upset by at least one of the family members. I just wouldn't be surprised at all to see that happen, because they've got to be bothered. I think we're on day 117. Chat, let me know if I'm wrong. I think we're on day 117,
Yeah.
Daniel, and to just seemingly have no answers, I think is probably beyond frustrating. And by the way, I think the other part of that article that was wrong, and so that's why I thought the source information was wrong, where it said something, insinuating that Savannah thinks her mom is alive. They're going to be looking for her. Did you see that part? I think you even had it up on your screen there.
Yeah, that's true.
What does it say there?
It says Savannah still believes Nancy can be found as her mom suspects name is finally identified. I haven't read too far into this. Let me kind of go through it. It says here, friends of Emmy-winning journalist said Guthrie has become increasingly frustrated with the slow pace of the official investigation, especially after Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos cut off direct communication with her family. I personally am not. Nanos previously told people when asked if he was in touch with the Guthrie family, pointing to the detectives and the FBI. Nanos noted, if they need the family for anything, they get in touch with them, and the family, it works both ways. So he's kind of saying that he's not the person that talks to him, but he's not saying that his department isn't talking to them. He's saying he personally hasn't spoke to her recently. Does that come? That doesn't really come off as cutting her off, so to speak. That comes off more like, there are other people who are, in touch with them. What do you think about that part?
Oh, I think definitely. I actually saw something else, and straight out of his mouth is that they are communicating with the FBI now. They're not communicating. So Pima County's out. The FBI is in. They're handling communications with the Guthries. And that makes a lot of sense, I think, because of all the shade that's been thrown on Sheriff Nanos.
Oh, yeah.
Well, certainly on the family, but even on Sheriff Nanos. I mean, who wouldn't lose some sense of belief in the investigation based on all the things we can see here in hindsight, with the crime scene, and the lab and the DNA, and not taking the mat, not taking the flowers. And we could just list off so many mistakes that, I'm sure it's being pointed out to the family that those are errors.
Yeah, I'm sure they're seeing it. I'm sure they see and hear the things that were going on as far as the lack of, what was it? There was a lack of competence in him. There was also the whole thing where they were trying to remove him based on some things that he may have said that were inaccurate about his profession or his previous career at El Paso. So, I'm sure that's all probably adding up as well. But this goes on to say, another insider told Shutter that Guthrie found Nana's comments incredibly upsetting. She expected urgency and direct communication. Instead, she feels the investigation became distant and procedural. Insiders also revealed that Guthrie is spending enormous amounts of money on private search, and she refuses to scale back the operation. Money doesn't matter to her right now. This is about finding her mother. If more investigators, more security, and more resources help, she'll keep paying for them. So I'm assuming that there's this pretty heavy investigation coming from Miss Guthrie, and she's spending quite a bit of money, as it seems. If this was somebody close to the family, do you think that investigation would, from her and the amount of money she's spending, do you think that could have possibly already come up as a possibility?
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense, right? If my family, if I think my, Annie's involved, or Tommaso, some people are still pointing fingers, it doesn't make a lot of sense that she would be spending $500,000 to lock up her sister and brother-in-law necessarily. I think she wants answers, but I agree with you. In other words, if it is true, which I would just take all of this and literally play telephone game. It might not be 10 oranges. It might be a tangerine that they discussed. Is it really $500,000? Is it really a unit with former FBI? Are they really doing searches? You have streamers out there that are, I equated them to cucarachas. I guess that was just crawling under every rock, looking for anything that might interest viewers and their fan base. It's hilarious in a sense. I like that they're keeping it out there, but some of the stuff they're doing, the partying, dressing up like porch guy, is just so tasteless. But I just can't imagine if she has this huge search effort going on that they wouldn't have been detected. So I find a lot of this article and this information suspect. And also, she made it very clear, Savannah Guthrie, that she said her mom is not alive. She said, and you can, I have it posted, she said specifically, I had a conversation with God, and God said, Savannah, you know she's here with me. I'm just trying to point out that Savannah, I believe, is very much convinced and has been for months that her mother is no longer alive. So I didn't like the flavor of this article, like somehow that this unit was going to be able to rescue Nancy. Maybe I read too much into it. Maybe they're meaning her corpse, but that isn't how this article comes off.
Yeah, no, I agree. It doesn't come off that way, but it doesn't say find her alive. It goes on to say she still believes her mom can be found. That's why private investigators are still working every single day. I'm assuming that that means, just her remains being found. But if it is, being found alive, I 100% agree with you. Then I would be very suspicious. And then this is the part where it says that there was a development. The development comes amid reports that a suspect's name may soon be identified. In a May 2026 interview with News 4 Tucson, Robbie Mayer, a former detective with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, drew parallels between Nancy's case and a major investigation he led decades ago. In 1986, Mayer broke the primetime rapist case in which Brian Lavria robbed Tucson homes and essayed the female residents. Those crimes occurred between 1983 and 1986. I mean, I don't understand how that leads anybody to believe that there's going to be a suspect here. It goes on to say, Mayer remembered that the police shifted through 4,000 leads before finally identifying the suspect who took his own life. Okay. Now, Mayer is confident the suspect's name is in one of the 50,000 tips. Okay, so there's not really anything there. Just that this guy solved a crime a few decades ago based off of leads, and he feels that because of how many leads they have, they may find something. Do you think that there's a lead in there that could be worked on in the 50,000 tips?
Yeah, I really do. A long time ago, and I'll probably eat my words, but I made a prediction that in 6 months, that law enforcement would make some headway and have some sort of suspect in mind. As I see the months tick by and nothing come to fruition, maybe I was a bit optimistic, but I just can't imagine. I have to be honest. I just can't imagine this won't ultimately be solved. Although I think my 6-month prediction might be a little bit optimistic. Like I said, it might take much longer. I think it will be solved. There's too many clues out there. You got 6 emails going to the media. You have Porch Guy's mug that you can tell a lot from. The mustache, the eyes, the eyebrows, that eye that goes in. The fact he shops at Walmart. You have all of the garb he had on, plus that backpack. Those are leads. There's just a lot of leads, and there has to be some video of that vehicle at some point leaving after 2:30 that's somewhere in that vicinity that's going to get picked up. I just can't imagine this can't be solved. I really can't. The DNA maybe too.
I think the DNA is going to be, that's going to be helpful. I wonder, because I've looked at the blood outside. I had Steve from True Crime Web. He's a former CSI investigator. He looked at it. He kind of discussed on how he believed that it was aspirated, or he gets on to me because I say aspirated. It's not aspirated. It was offed out. There you go. Expirated. Yeah. And then she was probably anywhere between 12 to 18 inches off the ground. One of the things we noticed when we're looking at it is there's no handprint in the blood, and there's no outline of a hand in the cough of the blood, meaning that we suspect she was restrained, obviously not gagged to the point where she could cough. And I kind of forgot where I was going there with that, but that's kind of what we saw in okay, I remember now. I came across an article that said that there was a spike in her heart rate at around 2 a.m. or a spike in the pacemaker. It was from the New York Post. If the pacemaker had left at 2:28 and that spike occurred at 2 a.m., and if you look at the blood, that that blood, the drops are kind of close together. We were looking at some of the videos that led us to believe that she was probably still walking. As if she was carried, then it'd probably be a little bit more spread apart because of the speed that he would have been walking at. And so, just kind of my thoughts. If that was a major medical situation at 2 a.m., I don't think she's walking after that. And if that ends up being the case, then that blood situation may have happened at around 2 a.m. or before 2 a.m., which means that I don't know. Brian Enton reported that the place was really clean. Do you think there's a possibility that he cleaned up after himself?
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, the man who I think is Porch Guy, he was seen at 2:14 a.m., according to police, outside on those roof cameras. So at 2:14, he's on the side of the house. At 2:38, I think when her, I'm sorry, 2:28, when her pacemaker disconnects, I think it's truly because it does get too far away. Done a lot of research and discussion on this, but basically it could be something that it's not even that far away and it could disconnect, or it could disconnect from going into the next room. And then certainly though, 100%, once you get outside that brick wall, that Bluetooth is going to have trouble communicating with the watch/cell phone. So basically on a couple of points you made, I 100% believe it was expirated blood. I 100% found this amazing photo, not the one that everybody likes to look at with the drops that are all together, which I believe is he was holding her. I do not believe she was walking. I believe she was unconscious, which of course the vagus nerve still works, coughing, sneezing, your heart rate, your heartbeat, all of that still functions because it's involuntary. I can see her tossed over his shoulder, possibly, but I think he was carrying her. I think she was unconscious. And the big thing is expirated blood. Why do you expirate blood? From internal damage, period, end of story, which tells me she was mistreated inside that house. I'm not saying he beat the heck out of her. I'm saying he managed her roughly enough to cause internal damage, internal bleeding within her, either her lungs or her her airways, her bronchial tree. In some way she was damaged. So I believe it was much rougher on her than people may envision. I do not believe there's any chance she walked. I just found yesterday the footage from I found it. Somebody else found it, and then they found it and gave them, of course, a lot of credit for that. That the cane was left inside. I had never found absolute facts, proof of that. And it's actually on the video, on the scanner, the police scanner. They said her cane was left behind. I don't think she had any prayer of walking without a cane. I think he 100% held her. As far as the pacemaker having a spike, get this, it took me hours to track that down. And you know where that originated from? That originated from a cardiologist on CNN that gave that possibility. That if she would have seen Porch Guy standing in front of her at the bed, when she opened up her eyes, it would cause a spike. That grew legs and fire, and all of a sudden that the spike occurred. The spike has never been reported. There's no evidence of it. That's where that originated. That's the genesis of that statement, just to let you know. It took me forever to track it down.
I was wondering, because the only thing I could find it on was the New York Post, I believe, is who put it out there. But this is somebody walking up while the blood. Let me pause this real quick. And good. I'm going to remove the comments and make this bigger, and see, we can see the blood trail.
That, of course, was the shirt the scent dogs used, or the CBP handler, and then he just tosses it off to the side, which I pointed out was a huge error.
You see, well, first, the the blood there, the first thing that we had when we discussed that she was probably looking straight down when it happened, right? And that's why Steve thinks that she was about 12 to 17 inches. If she was carried, I don't know if she's going to be able to look like that, be in that position of looking straight down. Whether it's over the shoulder, whether it's up like this. I don't know where that's possible. And then you have these droplets here, and they're so close together.
Daniel.
Right, but how does she face parallel to the ground, like face like that if she's being carried? Because
here's her body. Here's her head.
Right. But if her head is down, I mean, this Steve also thought that she would have to be, based on the proximity of the cluster of blood, that she would have to be 12 to 17 inches off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the position that he came up with is in the fetal position on the knees. And that was the one that he did an experiment. I don't have it with me, but he did an experiment to try to recreate that. And he was down on his knees, low to the ground to make that happen. And then,
so you think she was on her knees?
Yeah, he believes that she was on her knees on the ground. Now, I think maybe he put her there, moved the vehicle, did something, but he mentioned that these drops here being so close together that is somebody moving slowly.
Go ahead. Sorry.
If she was carried, he suspects that these droplets would be separated further based on his ability to walk quicker.
So how I picture it is him having her, I agree, with a very close distance to the ground, because I picture him like this, her main part of her body here. Remember, she's 154 pounds, everyone, at least. And I'm going to even say up to 160. If you look at the most recent pictures of her, and also her description, I think was at 154. So she's not light. I mean, anybody try to hold somebody that it's not easy. He looks like a decent sized guy, right? They said he's 5'10" or so, medium build. But just imagine you're right here, and you know where you see that spatter a little bit closer to the mat? I think that's where he turns and shuts the door. And so there are more drops that come down right there as he's holding her there. And I actually have this great comparison that when blood drops hit, boom, 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 it looks like expirated blood. But what convinced me it was expirated blood, and I love this picture too, so just imagine her being carried. But if you look back up there on the far left, and I'm not sure yours is going to show back up on the porch area, Daniel, on this far left side, not where everybody was concentrating, trying to figure out, which to me is where he stalls for a moment. And so wherever she's bleeding from is pounding that pavement and spattering out. And in that other, that's where I saw the mist. And that's why I'm convinced it was expirated, not because of where it pounds right there, but further out where you can see the little, the marks, which now I'm convinced she left there alive. I think she was likely unconscious, and I think he was carrying her. But none of us, so not that part, because I think that's one spot, right? So boom, 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 lots in a row, likely because they're pulling the door. So I think part of that is expirated, but I have this amazing picture to show that just one of those droplets, Daniel, makes those little droplets. But of course, the lab knows. The lab knows, because there's going to be mucus in there.
Right.
So they knew in seconds whether this is expirated or not. I agree it's expirated, but can you pan to the left where there's not much blood? So
not from this. This is the entire image. Let me see if I have more.
Oh, okay. There is the best image And you can see it's for sure expirated. And there's not a bunch in a row, but rather there's just a few. And I think that's her carrying him. And you can even tell the pattern, the overall arching pattern is like this at a slant. In other words, why he isn't stepping in it, because she is off over. But I don't listen. I am not a blood spatter expert. I've never even seen a blood spatter expert comment on this. In other words, somebody that's in the lab
Right.
and looks at the, and even if you did have a blood spatter or I had one on, they would tell you, Jen, I can't see it under a microscope. So without that, I can't 100% tell. But there's a lot of us on here that have seen spatter that have these opinions, and I have a lot of respect for all of these opinions, but I'm just giving you mine.
Well, I know somebody in the comment section asked, why isn't there a shoe print? I think there is. I think this is that one part that everybody can see. There's another edge here. This is a different part. This is actually, I hope it's like right here. It's down here. It's just out of the frame. But I had a video. I don't have it anymore, but there's an edge where you can see the same triangular or three little like
Notches.
bumps. Yeah. And it's very close to where this is at. So I suspect that this is probably a shoe print. Is it the suspects or is it the victims? I have no idea. It sounded like she left without shoes though. So I'm assuming this is the suspects. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. She didn't have shoes. That's 100% in her pajamas, no shoes. So again, I don't think she was walking. I'm not sure I could be convinced that she was walking. I don't think she was able to walk without a cane. And I also think she was severely hurt because she was expirating blood. And whenever you expirate, that's internal damage. So I think she was not in shape to walk, even if she was as healthy as she ever was. And this was not that case. So I'm very much convinced carried and no shoes. And I agree that could be one. I call you, and you'll remember this, I bet. And probably a lot of people in the audience will remember that there was a bloody shoe print in front of Dylan's door, left by Brian Koberger, but no one saw it. No crime scene saw it. They had to go back and do special experiments with a protein type agent to make it come to where it could be taken. And that's how they knew they were Vans shoes, right? So we don't know. And I pray they did it. I mean, I have no confidence they did anything right on the porch area. They didn't take the vines. They didn't take the mat.
They still haven't taken the mat.
And then, so do I have any confidence that they did the protein testing to prove shoe prints that could have possibly touched it in the blood? I don't have any confidence of that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't. So I got a question for you, Jen, and then I kind of want to break down a few things that I've noticed and then get your thoughts on them as well. First question I have for you is, how common is it for an intruder to enter and exit the same way?
It is common for them to enter and exit the same way. That's the common thing. It is uncommon to enter and exit two different ways.
And so there's some stuff that we found out that, like, for instance, this door is propped open. It's propped open by a pot. A couple of things that I noticed is the other door. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Right here. There's also an empty pot here near the door, near the gate to the backyard. People are creatures of habit. I wonder if he used, the pot to keep this open. Does this tell you that the initial plan was to go through the backyard?
It doesn't tell me that. I'm sorry. The initial plan to go to the backyard, 100%. I think
that was the plan to get her out too, right?
Yeah, and the plan to get her out so she would be close to the circle drive where a car would be waiting was to take her out that front. But he didn't want to break through that, and I think you have a picture of the door there. That's going to be tough to get in. He has this plan, I think probably from the January 11th or from whenever that picture was taken of him without the backpack and without the gun. That's where he plans this all out, I truly believe. And
That's possible. You know, I think that that's probably the same night. There's just, I don't know. I still think that it's the same night. The without the backpack, you know, what we know is that the camera gets disconnected at 1:48. What we don't know is when he arrived there, how long he was there at the property, if maybe perhaps he made entry before disconnecting the camera, and then having to, you know, maybe perhaps his plan was never to go out the front door, but, you know, change of plans. My opinion is that he underestimated her mobility and had to change plans because according to Ashley Banfield, blood was only at the like at the doorway of the entrance of the home, that there wasn't the a sign. And I think I've also found this in other places. I don't know how accurate it is, but there's been reports that there's no sign of an assault inside of the house, outside of the doorway area. Have you heard that?
Yeah, what I have heard, source information, and the source in this situation, I think, is the same source for everybody. It's a guy that, well, I won't get into it, but basically a guy with a lot of hate for Nanos, for Pima County, how he's been treated. So you have to look at that underlying reason. And then, by the way, the source has no inside information. He has a friend who knows a friend who is supposedly on that task force. So it's literally the telephone game. And so that's problematic. But to your point, is the reporting is that basically it wasn't that messed up inside.
Correct.
Right.
That it was clean.
That it wasn't a hot mess like you would imagine in somebody going through and just going crazy. In other words, he knew exactly where to go, grabs her, but I still think he roughed her up to some degree because she has expirating blood.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you.
It was by accident. You know, like he grabs her and pulls her, and that breaks a rib or, you know, causes something to cause internal bleeding.
So, like, to me, I think that the exit and entry point, the plan was to go through the backyard. I think he parked right here, to be honest with you. If we were to look at the video, and I have it here, let me pull this up. I got a couple of things that I've noticed about it. I just got to find the right one. So here's where I think he parked. And I think he walked around this way. And I think he checked the windows till he got to the front door. Let me find the video. Here it is. Okay. So the first thing I noticed, and I have this in slow motion, is his first step is on the border of the sidewalk. Okay. So it's on the border of the sidewalk. The second step is a little bit more inward. The third step is kind of towards the middle, and the fourth step crosses the middle part of the center of the sidewalk. I think he's coming off of the dirt area. He's not coming from the driveway. So if we were to go back here, if he would have gone around this part, like if he would have parked here or parked here or parked there, anywhere else other than right here and walked this way, he would have ended up in front, and he would have been walking down the front of the sidewalk. But that's not the case. He's coming off the side. And so he's coming off the side of the sidewalk. I also think he's left-handed, by the way. I don't know if you've caught that by me before. He takes a step up with his left foot. He approaches the left side of the door. He manipulates the gun with his left hand. He then blocks with his right hand, manipulates the doorbell camera with his left hand, turns downward, looks down to the left, and then when he grabs the plant, it's with his left hand. And so I strongly suspect that this dude is left-handed. Everything is done with the left and the left hand. I think that's probably why he's using a weird holster. It's probably to hide the fact that he's left-handed, and in case he has to draw the weapon out of an uncomfortable position or out of his non-dominant hand. and it not being a holster that is going to give him some trouble. I also think he didn't want to give away that he was left-handed, but there's only certain things you can do. But he's coming from the left side. And
Okay, can you go back to that other picture you had? I don't necessarily think he was at around the corner, but if you can go back to the one you had and there was a white car in the drive. You are so good at this. My thing clicks there. Okay. See the right truck, I guess it is right there.
Yeah.
I think you could be parked there and not up in the driveway and still have that vantage. But I 100% agree with you that he came from that side. But I think
there's a rock wall here. So he would have had to have come all the way around this way to do so. Now, if his plan, so there's a rock wall here. I think I have a picture of it somewhere here. And so you can see this would have been kind of tough, especially at night, to come across. There's the white truck. I think he parked here. I think his plan was there. My question to you is, if his plan was the back door and that's how he essentially got in, what is he doing here now in the front door, coming out on camera, coming from the side of the house?
I think there was no way he was going to take away it. And if you put that picture up of her house, there is no way he's going to take Nancy all the way around. And I know what you're saying. If the vehicle is parked in the driveway, it wouldn't be all the way around. But to me, it was just so much simpler to go through that front door, because you would have to walk all the way around to get her into your vehicle. I think I see what you're saying is, listen, that would be more obscured, but there was also a fence there.
And we also have to think that that's assuming he was highly aware of Nancy's immobility. If he's not that aware of how immobile she is, he may be thinking parking back here is less visible than parking right here where the truck is, and that he can come in and then I think the plan was to walk out that way because the doors were propped open. So his plan, in my opinion, was always around the back and out. I think the mobility aspect changed. I think that may have been the reason why he took the doorbell camera off, is because, all right, now I got to move my car from the side and I got to park it in the front, and I don't want it to be seen. And so I've always wondered about, him coming out on camera. I've always thought it was staged to a certain extent where he wanted to be seen. I know that there's been there's some reports out there that there was some camera issues with Wi-Fi and things of that nature. I wonder if the suspect had something to do with that. If he did, I mean, this is probably somebody a lot more intelligent than we're giving him credit for, if he was capable of downing the Wi-Fi to security cameras. And I strongly suspect that they don't have his a picture of his vehicle, and well, at least maybe they do now, but I don't think anytime recently, because when they searched Carlos's van, it had a big old insignia on the side of it. And I have a hard time believing that cameras that are fixated on houses that are going to capture the side of vehicles aren't going to capture that. You get what I'm saying?
So yes, I get what you're saying, but her Ring camera, or sorry, Nest camera, was directed straight out. Do you have a Nest or a Ring camera? I'm just curious.
I do.
Okay, I do too. And mine, I have set up, well, I have 3, but I have it set up not pointed straight out. I have it set up so that I can see the porch, the entry to the porch, and the entirety almost of the driveway where people would drive up, because I think that's more important. So I don't have it pointed straight out like she did, which now you've got a tunnel instead of a wider arrangement to see more.
Well, most houses though have security footage. They're fixated on the homes. And if they're faced out to the yard, they're going to capture the side profile of the vehicles passing by. I find it weird that they're searching a truck. They're searching 2 vehicles early on. They searched a Range Rover that had windows on the side, and they searched a boxed van with no windows, but had a big old decal on the side or painted insignia. And so unless you're thinking that Carlos put some fake windows looking things on the side of his boxed van to make it look like there's windows on there, I'm just kind of, I don't know. I mean, if you had a video of a vehicle passing by and there's no insignia of it, do you think you're getting a warrant from a judge to go search it?
Well, okay, so I'm hearing a lot of different questions, I guess, that you're bringing up. So I
Sorry
want to
about that.
one at a time if I can.
So basically, the first one is, if there's if you have video of the suspect vehicle and you have a profile shot of that vehicle, and there's no insignia on it of the delivery place that Carlos worked at, do you think you're going to get a warrant to search his delivery truck?
It absolutely depends on all the other information that you might have on that can pile up that wouldn't just include that. So I know you've gone over to Carlos, which I think you're just trying to get at, should they have had the probable cause? Was that warranted that they were able to get that warrant? But I'm
not necessarily. My thoughts,
the house.
My thought process is that they don't have a picture of a vehicle leaving. If they did, then they would have seen that there either was or was not a decal on the side of it. And the fact that they're going in and searching two different vehicles, one that has a decal on the side, one that doesn't. And although they're boxy, that's really the only thing that's similar. There's windows that are different. There's headlights. Everything else is completely different about the vehicles. My opinion is that they don't have a picture or a video of a suspect vehicle that they can identify.
Okay, so let me break this down. So first of all, to me, we're talking about sort of apples and oranges. No, they don't. This is a light pollution-free area. If you've ever lived in one of these, and I've lived in one for many, many years, it's insane. You can walk outside and it looks like the Milky Way. It looks like a scene out of Dances with Wolves. And when the full moon comes out, which the full moon was out here, and that's why I want to get back to your point about it being the same night, and I want to discuss that with you. But it is amazing. It's almost like a flashlight coming from the sky because there's no ambient light anywhere. So there is no way in heck that you're going to be able to get a picture of the vehicle, period. They're not right here. But where you could get it is following the different routes that you can take from here and going to the choke points and using the data, the telephonic data, if they had cell phones. You could start with that, the geofencing data from different choke points to figure out what vehicles were at those choke points. And at some point, it has to come out where a traffic cam could possibly be able to intervene and see a tag. Now, back to the whole Carlos thing. When you writing a warrant, you remember there was no arrest warrant, of course. He was just detained, which is something you can do whenever it's a lower level than even probable cause. It's called reasonable suspicion that you might know about. And it's the lowest level. It's like a Terry stop, that you can do a Terry stop based on, as law enforcement, if we think there's reasonable suspicion that there's criminal activity afoot. That, I believe, is the exact verbiage in the law. So in this case, with those warrants, they actually got a warrant for the house, and then they got a warrant for those vehicles, right? The first one was done with state warrants, and the second one was done federally. When I look at that, I believe it's because somebody came forward and said, oh my gosh, this is Porch Guy. Look at the eyes, look at the face. And because there was this resemblance with both, and they wanted to jump on it because they were worried about Nancy being alive. So those are exigent circumstances which fall in a completely different category. When you're doing a probable cause affidavit, a judge is going to look and say, oh my God, somebody's life could be on the line here. We need to quickly make this happen, right? So, but I agree with you. They don't have a car. I think if they did, they would come forward to this. And I'm so glad you're going with this. This is why I think it might be the 11th. The 11th was a waning crescent. And that moon, in other words, it's just the sliver typically. It could be up to, I don't know, I think it's like 25% of illumination compared to the full moon. The full moon was the day that she was abducted. The 11th was waning. Look at the background. And I know there's some ambient light coming from the camera, but that would have been ambient light in both cases. This is no moonlight. And I think to appreciate this, if you've ever been in a no light pollution area, you will understand what I'm saying. You can barely see your hand in front of you. It is pitch black out there.
Well, I would normally agree with you. However, let me pull this up real quick. Let me find it. I have a video here.
Did you see
where
that?
We see, I thought this was a video, maybe not. But we had superimposed this on top of each other. And what these lights are, and we looked at it during the day, these aren't lights. These are reflections of the moonlight onto the there's a building right here. And this is a house. And what we're seeing here is the reflection of the moon light onto the house. I agree with you that there is that it's dark and those things. Now, as far as why is it so much darker here? I think that it's possible that this is the first time that the camera is one. Well, there's a couple of things that I'm wondering about this thing. One, first, if we recall, I think Sheriff Nano said that they had to peel off the layers, kind of like a paint, like paint on a like a painting, to peel off the painting to get to it. I don't know if that had an effect, if we're seeing something overlapping. Also, I don't know if this is the moment that the camera captures the movement for the first time. And so when a camera reacts or turns on for the first time, it sometimes gets darker, brighter, it'll flash, it'll do a bunch of different things when it first activates with motion. I suspect that this guy at this point is coming from the right side where Nancy's bedroom is, and he's coming across now. There was a sprinkler head that was broken, that was walking through that path there, that was fixed shortly after her disappearance. However, I don't know if this is when the camera is activating. I don't know if this is a situation where, because they were peeling back, scraping the surfaces to get to this image. I don't know, but I'm not going to say that it's impossible that it's not a different night. If it is a different night, he's wearing the exact same sweater. He's wearing, a similar mask. I would assume it's the same one if he's wearing the exact same sweater. You would assume if he's doing all that there would be a lot of DNA transferred from him using this multiple times, wearing it, if he washed it in his clothing, a lot of different things. If he didn't, and he just wore it multiple times in his car, I would assume that his DNA would be all over the place, don't you?
Well, I don't really think that was the case here. In other words, I think the shoes look different to me, and I think the shirt looks different to me. In all of the times I've looked at it up close, I don't like the fact that the lighting is different. I don't like the fact that I'm not convinced that jacket is the same. I'm not convinced that the shoes are the same. And I cannot understand why somebody would come up and would actually have, would kit themselves out. In other words, they might, but to come not ready to do the biggest operation that they're going to do perhaps in their life, to kidnap Savannah's Guthrie and not be ready for something happen, not have that gun, not have their kit bag, that they would just, what are they going back and forth to their vehicle? None of that makes sense to me. Normally people, when they come and they're going to do an operation like this, you're ready to go. You don't go somewhere and get everything. So for those reasons, so I'll give you my reasons. The lighting, I don't think the two things that I think don't look 100% similar are the shirt and the shoes, and the fact that it makes no sense. Just from my background, I don't know of any crime that I can think was ever committed where they went back and kitted out. They come ready to rock and roll with everything they need in their bag and their gun if they feel like they need that. So I just would have never seen that before.
Well, I agree, but this here, in my opinion, is the first time that he's walking up. Would you agree this is the first time he's walking up?
On that day.
On this day. So if that image is of the same day, then that means he left this area and then came back. Now, one of the questions I had was, is it possible that before he removed the camera from the wall, could he have already made entry? Could he have already maybe restrained Nancy? And then, maybe during his walk, he's like, all right, I can't walk her out the front. I got to go around. And maybe that's why he doesn't have his backpack and his stuff. As far as, is it the same? I strongly suspect it is, mainly because of as far as the sweater goes, you see this line right here? That line is right there across his chest. And so I think it's the same sweater for sure. As far as the shoes go, I mean, it's really pixelated, so it's hard to tell what that is. And you don't see that side of his shoe. This part is covered, so whatever dark part that appears to come out, it's on the inside, and it seems to be kind of I can't tell. I have no idea. I don't know if this guy jumped a fence or something, and now his pants are kind of weird and it's exposing more of the shoe or not. But it does, I see your point there where it does kind of look a little different, but I don't know. There's a little black tip here too on the shoe point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just don't see that. The shoes look different to me. I do see your point about the jacket line, that they have that similar jacket line. But I can make no sense from at least from my training and experience that this guy would slouch up there, which I think was the first time he entered. He knew that camera was there from previous, what I call a site survey, which I think he did on the 11th. And I have where Savannah Guthrie specifically says, please check your cameras, check everything on the 11th. And also the source information said the 11th. A neighbor talks about the 11th. The lighting conditions are different on the 11th because it's a full moon versus a waning crescent. And when you look, that adds up to me that this is a site survey. Now you might say, geez, how ballsy of this guy, right? That he's going to come 2 different times. But, what is planning and preparation makes for a good operation. I think it's very possible that he did plan and prepare, and that's why all this has been put on the 11th. So that's my belief. I think his 100% plan, this is just my belief, that he walks up there, keeps his head down because he knows that camera's recording. He goes up, this is just my belief, he goes up there and covers it with his hand and goes to pull it off, and then he's not getting the proper grip on it because these gloves are too dang big for his hand. They don't fit his hand properly, and they're not the sticky ones, and he's not able to get the grip he wants. He realizes it, and because he's never practiced that, he's like, crap. He turns around, what can I get? What can I get where I can get a better grip? He goes down and he pulls out those vines. If you look, I think he uses both hands. I believe he's right-handed. And I say that because you would never want the handle grip of your gun to be on the opposite side. There's no way you could draw. You can't cross draw that way.
Oh, you can go like this.
Be like this. And so I truly believe his hand.
But that's why he has a position there. And you've handled guns before. Have you ever handled one? Have you ever grabbed one with your non-dominant hand?
Of
when you have
course,
access to your right hand? I
we
mean, in
have.
this scenario here, as he's approaching,
Yeah.
he's grabbing it with his non-dominant hand if he's right-handed. Now, the reason why he's wearing this pouch, in my opinion, and I can go back to it, is because I think he's turning his hand like this, and it's easy to do that. If I had a left-handed pouch in front of me, I could do that. If he had a left-handed holster and he's left-handed, it would have been very easy to kind of figure out who he is. I looked here in San Antonio on Facebook Marketplace. There was two that you can get on the secondhand market, and I doubt that you can find them. That you're going to be able to purchase one new and hide that transaction. And so I think he definitely, like I said, everything goes to the left, but he's maneuvering his gun with his left hand when he has both hands free. It just doesn't, that doesn't make sense to me.
So I'll disagree with you on this, because I see him using both hands when he goes and pulls that vine. I don't see him dominantly using one hand. And to me, you are never going to try to cross draw that way. It would be so literally almost impossible to reach over and cross draw like that. That's just my opinion.
Mhm.
When I've used my left hand, when my right hand is free, it's for a very simple purpose. And that's when I'm trying to use cover and concealment by a particular doorway, and I want to expose the less amount of my body. So then I will use my left hand, even though my right hand is fully available. I'll use my left hand. And in the Bureau, we trained extensively on weak-handed. We had to qualify weak-handed. Why? Because I came into the Bureau right after the Miami shootout, where Morales was on the ground. His dominant hand had been blown apart, and he had to manipulate a shotgun left-handed. And the Bureau said, we're going to have everybody, or off-handed, weak-handed, we're going to have everybody be able to use their left hand just as well as they can use their right hand. So just saying, that's why I feel my training with my less dominant hand is extremely good. And I can tell you
Well,
that.
let's assume he hasn't had this training, though. You know, if you're watching just regular people that have not been trained to do that, how common are you seeing them manipulate the weapon with their non-dominant hand?
Oh, you're not. And that's why he's got it faced out to use his dominant hand, which is his right hand. That's just
But as he approaches, he grabs the gun. See, the gun is going to his right. Right
Sure.
here, it's moving to his right. He doesn't grab the gun with his right hand and push it back. He grabs the gun with his left hand. Right there.
Well,
to center it off. And then not only that, but he blocks with his right hand, and he manipulates the doorbell camera with his left. So that's the second thing. He's manipulating that. That seems unnatural to me, to do that with my right hand, my dominant hand, to block and manipulate something with my left hand. That seems uncomfortable to me.
I don't.
One of the things. He is.
What's he manipulating?
The doorbell camera. The doorknob's right here. The camera's right here. It is right underneath. He's kind of shaking it, the doorbell camera.
But I mean, the camera is this, it's his right hand that's blocking the camera. Do we agree on that? The camera lens?
That is his right hand blocking the camera, which again, doesn't make sense to do. Like, if you were to go up to something and grab, like if I shined a light at you, which hand are you going to pick up to block with?
I mean, I would have to experiment with it, but probably my right hand. I am crazy dominant handed though. You know, like my husband is ambidextrous. My kids are lefties, and it's crazy how right I am. Like, I do everything right. I feel awkward using left, but
that's a great point, because I was talking to a buddy of mine who noticed this. He's a boxer, and he said, when you fight southpaws, one of the things that you notice is left-handed folks, most of them, not all of them, they are left-bodied. So he takes a step up with his left foot. He leads with his left foot. He leads to the left side of the door. He manipulates the gun with his left hand. He blocks with his right hand, and then goes to manipulate the camera with his left. And his first move is down and to the left.
I don't.
There's a bunch of rocks out there. I know you said he grabbed some vine, but he could have just grabbed a rock, and then he grabs it with his left hand there, and then he does
Okay.
that number. But he is 100% grabbing it with his left hand.
I see both hands down there.
Well, he has both hands down there, but he does not. He reaches down, and that is 100% his left hand grabbing the plants. And so, I mean, he led with his left foot, led to the left side, manipulated the gun with his left hand, then blocked with his right hand and manipulated something with his left hand, which doesn't make sense to do. I mean, if you go and grab a doorknob, are you grabbing it with your right hand or your left?
Well, first of all, I'm going to grab that shrubbery with my left hand because I need my right hand free to draw my weapon if I need to.
Well, I mean, yeah, but we're trained. I don't think this guy's trained that way. I mean, I don't think if he was trained, he would be using a holster that was appropriate, and he'd also have it on his right side if he was right-handed. And so,
And I also want to comment that on the leg thing, I don't think we can tell anything from that. As an example, I don't know what you are. I am so strongly left-legged. I ran hurdles for years. My left leg is my lead leg. Anything I use to kick, anything like that, it's my left leg. So I'm left-legged, left-eyed, right-handed. So I don't think we can tell anything about the walking to tell the handedness per se. And you see how he's using, I see what you're saying, that you think, I mean, we can't really tell what's happening because everything's blocked, but I understand what you're saying. My biggest point is that right handle of his weapon. I think he would never do that as a lefty. That's just my opinion though.
well, I think that's why it's positioned where it's at. It's positioned in the middle so that if he has to draw it, all he has to do is twist his hand like this and he can pull it out. And it's also in a holster that makes it easy for it to come out.
I agree.
So it's in a holster for it to come out easier. So that way you can pull it easy, possibly with the wrong hand and or in an uncomfortable or an unusual position. See, if it was in a normal holster, it may be, even if you have it there, if you're trying to do it from this angle, it's going to be kind of hard to twist the gun right. And so I strongly think he was trying to hide the fact that he was left-handed, and and that's why he had the gun that way. It was the easiest way to remove it.
So I think that I would never give this guy that much credit to think that he thought, okay, in case I ever get caught, I'm going to mask what handedness I am. Because let's face it, that's where this comes into play, right? Is if ever there is an arrest made or a subject is identified, that's going to be one of the things they want to determine, right? In other words, if they arrest somebody and he ends up being left-handed, but he is believed to be right-handed in this video, that's where it comes up as being important. So I agree with you that the left and right-handed really comes important if you get a suspect and to confirm that he's your man. But I really believe he's right-handed, but I understand your points. I just think there is no chance this guy is going to flip his gun around, have to reach over, cross draw in a very awkward way. Now, I wore shoulder holsters, and that's a cross draw. But I would never cross draw with a holster that where the handle is facing to the right to cross draw with my left. I mean, it might not even, it would really, I just don't think, and I don't think he's a smart enough. I don't think he did this to just try to throw people off. But that's just my opinion. And I totally respect your opinion, Daniel. You know, I really like you. And it's actually so great to have different views come together and be able to discuss and be fine with it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, me personally, I think this guy's sadistic, and I think there's a fantasy motivation to this crime, whether that's revenge, whether that's sexually motivated, whether that's asphyxiation on Savannah. I think there's a fantasy aspect to it. Rex Humerman taunted his victims' family members. I thought to a certain extent, he had rocks, he had all these other things. He apparently bludgeoned a some floodlights,
Like,
on the back. Why not do the same to the front? Why utilize these flowers? So to me, I think that was maybe perhaps more of a message, possibly. And if he wasn't going to come out of the front door, there's a good possibility he may have left that there. And then, something changed, whether it was because he, underestimated her mobility, whether it was because there was an injury, or whether both of those things happened, and he had to go out the front door, and that changed to where he had to remove the camera. Because if his intent was just to either remove it and or destroy it, which he did to some other lights, there was a lot of rocks right next to those plants that he pulled up.
so I don't think his intention was to destroy it. I think his intention was to make it inoperable. And to make it inoperable, he had to yank that out, yank all the wires out so it could not record anymore. And I think we both agreed that this was his first approach that day, coming up there. I think this was his plan. I'm going to come up there. I'm going to disable this camera. I'm going to walk around, and he's seen on camera at 2:12. He walks around, and then he goes into those doorways. Now, why in the world would you leave two doorways open? He could have had an accomplice with him. It's possible. And we know we had a two-way radio. I saw you had that picture. I was so glad. That's a two-way radio. That's not it could possibly be a scanner. It's not a jammer. 100% not a jammer. There is no footage of being jammed. Why do you need to remove a camera if you've jammed the signal? And a jam works on both frequencies of the Bluetooth, which would be of the pacemaker, as well as the Wi-Fi on the camera equipment. And there's no information that anything was jammed on her pacemaker. So there's that whole jammer stuff and the Wi-Fi. And remember, it's coming from a neighbor and then I know Sheriff Nano said, we're looking into, was there an outage in that neighborhood at that time of night? And that could have been an outage, but to use a jammer, you have to be on top of the equipment. It makes everything look like a train wreck.
There are some other jammers that freeze the image. There are some jammers that freeze the image. And if the jammer was in his backpack and I don't know, it was left inside or left in the back, you do make a great point that the heart rate monitor doesn't pick it up, or the app, because that would have definitely been captured. But the jammer aspect, there was an article that was posted that they were looking into. I believe there was an internet box that was damaged in the neighborhood, and that they were looking at that was reported by, may have been one of the Fox News or something like that. But my thought process in that scenario was, if he wanted to, if that was the case, if this internet went down because somebody damaged the box, then how are we seeing the image of him walking up?
Well, a couple of things. So on that box, you're exactly right. You might even have the picture. I have it. It's the green box. They looked at it, and the cover was off, right? The cover, it wasn't secure. And that's what led them to believe that, in conjunction with a neighbor reporting some sort of outage. But that was determined, at least if you believe Sheriff Nanos, he came back and said, nope, that box wasn't tampered with. So if we were to believe him, that's out of the scenario. But they were checking with the electric company as to whether there was some sort of short outage somewhere in this time frame, and that could have been true, but we don't really know, quite frankly. But I don't think it has a big impact on this case, because we know when the camera was disconnected at 1:47, we know at 2:12 he's seen on the side, and then we know at 2:28 it was disconnected, and those are some pretty, I think, significant times. But don't you agree, Daniel, when he walks up right there? This is the first time he comes up, and his mission is to get that doorbell camera out of there so that he can take her out. And then he slinks around, he gets it, he puts it in.
What would be the point of keeping the back door propped open if that was the case?
So say you're going in, you prop open the door. I thought it's because there's another individual involved in this that would have been on scene.
But even if that's the case, they can keep the door open too.
Well,
what's the point of propping it if you have multiple people involved?
what kind of door, how many doors do you know that go and then they close and then you have to reopen them? Why not prop it open for your buddy? It's open, come in, it's in the back door. What bothered me was that there were both doors propped open, which made me think two people entered. Why would you ever keep that open except to stage something? That's the only thing I think could be staged.
Well, I'm thinking maybe he had some problems walking her, and he went to go prop it open because he was by himself, and he needed help to get her out. And then it was too much of a hassle, so he changed his mind and went out the front door.
It's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't think there is a wrong answer because we don't know what happened. So there's no wrong answer here. And perhaps he did have trouble and go out the front, but it made no sense to me that he's going to try to pull her out the back, go up and over with a 150-pound woman, a dead weight likely. When I say dead weight, I mean if she was unconscious, which that's my business. Right? How's he going to get her around there, Daniel? Especially if he's by himself.
And like I said, I think that's the underestimated part. I think he underestimated her mobility aspect of, how far she could walk and stuff like that. There was another camera in the backyard that wasn't touched. It was actually on the guest house that law enforcement was seen taking it off. You add the fact that the plan may have initially been to walk her all the way around. That all screams to me somebody who's not very familiar with her. I mean, I think that they watched her. I think they watched the house. I think you're possibly right that maybe they have gone there before, but I don't think that this person had intimate knowledge about her mobility, her, the how far she could walk, things like that. And I don't think that, I think that if it was Tommaso or it was someone of the family members and they're, in the process of destroying all the cameras, they wouldn't have missed the one in the backyard, the one that captured him at 2:14. I'm assuming it's that one because that's the one that they took down.
I agree with you on that. And that's
the thing, though, they didn't get the picture of him on that one. Why do you think that?
I think darkness.
Gotcha. Maybe.
These, as you know, without a lot of ambient. Oh my gosh. Thank you, AJW. That is the nicest thing. Thank you so much. And thanks for becoming a member. I always try to shout these out. Thanks for, I mean, it could be your channel, but either way, thank you.
These are on yours. Mine is this one. Thank you, Clad 157. Appreciate you.
Wow. Very nice. But nevertheless, this is why I really believe, and I've been screaming this since March 6th, and then it was picked up in mainstream media on March 17th, because I'll never forget, it was St. Patty's Day. Wrench attack. There was one that occurred just the day before in Scottsdale, an hour and a half away. And I just think this screams of something organized by something bigger and a mope that actually saw this through.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. I saw this here, Nancy Guthrie update, retired FBI agent shares 4 most likely scenarios, and you bring up wrench attack. For those that don't know, what do you mean by wrench attack?
So a wrench attack, the reason it got his name Wrench is because there's a cartoon, if you will, where somebody's beating somebody with a wrench as part of an attack to get money. And so that's how it got coined, wrench attack. But essentially what happens is, because people who have cryptocurrency or know people with cryptocurrency, there's no way to get it. It's not like it can be hacked or you can do something to get into somebody's bank account. Nothing like that can happen. What happens is you have to have the pass key. And without those numbers, this long set of numbers and letters, you can't get into it. So what people have done is they've said, listen, we're going to target individuals, and it's a very organized group that picks out who they are going to target. It can be a family member with somebody else with the crypto. It can be that they have the crypto. And the idea is to do one of two things: either beat out of them, in other words, they give it up because they can't stand the pain any longer and they give it, or you take for ransom and kidnap someone related to them that they care about, trying to get the cryptocurrency. In this case, obviously, it would be the latter. I found cases that mimic this case, one where a father was taken. They held him in an Airbnb of all things. My question is, think about, what was poor guy planning to do with her? We know it didn't work out likely and she died, but what was his plan? Where was he really going to take her? Was it an Airbnb like the other one? I mean, it sounds insane, but this whole thing is insane. To show up with an ill-fitting holster with your Walmart $10 backpack and to mope around like you don't have a care in the world. The whole thing is insane because they get these mopes that they're detached from, that like in one case, they just knew them as Red and 8. They communicated with their puppet masters. You know how much was paid in, let's see, in 2024? Yes, 2024, Daniel, in cryptocurrency ransom on cases I'm talking about like this?
No, how much?
183 million. Wow. The year before, 2023, 1.2 billion. In 2025, so far, I think because they haven't finished, I think it's over 800 million. This is not new. But the problem is the Bureau's investigating it. It involves the dark web for where you get these people. Look, I'm not saying this is 100% the case. What I'm saying is there's a lot of check boxes that this meets if it's this type of attack that makes a lot of sense. You got a mope. You've got 6 emails that the Bureau and all their SMEs, subject matter experts, cannot track down that are being paid privately. You've made zero, footing in this case. The guy could be from Mexico that picks up in the dark web and decides to work for these people. It just checks a lot of boxes. What do you think, Daniel? Sorry.
I think it's possible. The whole ransom motive, there's some things that bother me about it. One is who they contacted. They didn't contact the Guthries. They contacted TMZ. They contacted the media. Who's done that in the past? Not abductors, BTK, Zodiac. These are psycho persons who had fantasy type crimes. Those were the folks that contacted the media. I don't know about the 6. I know there's 2 that TMZ reported that the FBI believe are possibly the guy. And that was the first 2 that demanded ransom and then gave a timeline. And so the fact that they had called in and did this, then they disappeared. They upright disappeared. Now, some people say, well, that's because Miss Guthrie asked for proof of life. Who's in control? The abductors are. So just because Savannah asked for proof of life, they're just going to, okay, never mind. We're just going to stop this. I don't think so. I think it had more to do with the fact that maybe perhaps the media didn't post out their writings, their letter, whatever it was. And that be the case, because in those scenarios that you mentioned, how many of those scenarios that involved ransom with cryptocurrency did they contact the media first and not the victim's family members?
Okay, so 2 things. One, the reason I said 6 notes is there were 2 notes the next day that went to local media.
That's true.
And then there was a note that went to TMZ 12 hours later. So that's 3 times 2 is 6. So I just wanted to be squared
That's
away.
true.
So there's 6 communications. But to your point, there's 6 notes or 6
Right.
emails, 6 communication, but 6 total. Okay, or 2 different ones to 3 different sources. Okay,
That makes sense.
Your question with how many times has this happened in the past? This is the problem. I haven't to date, and I'm still looking. I mean, I scrubbed this. I do a different one not every show, but I think I've done 4 shows on different scenarios that are real life that happened. And I can't find a case where the person died. You know what I'm saying? So there was proof of life. Even a lot of these crypto guys don't send pictures or anything, but you know what they send? They send, for instance, a finger. They send something. And this was the other thing. People pay. I was just talking to one of my partners that I was in the FBI with for many, many years. And he just got done working exactly one of these cases, but not the crypto side. But they paid in money in this one. And they pay everybody. The Bureau's involved and they pay. That's the misnomer, is that the Bureau says you can't pay without proof of life. Every place in the world you pay except the United States. I'm saying in the United States, we don't try to get behind that. But the reason it works every place else is because if you pay, you get your person back.
Right.
It's a true quid pro quo. But in the United States, they were. So you had such a great question is, well, Jen, we haven't seen this. So I retort that I haven't seen a case where the person died. So that didn't, because Porch guy is such a mope idiot. That was problematic, right, for their scenario, perhaps. And then secondarily, the one thing these wrench attacks are known for is consistent hammering to get money, even when they don't give you proof of life. But what they're used to is people paying it. So I agree with you that there's a sense of sadistic and almost going after the Guthries, because I think they would have to know that normally in the United States, the Bureau is going to say without proof of life, don't give them anything. And what a humiliating thing they've done to the Guthries, right? Don't you agree? Like, they've made Savannah and her family look so bad. 45 million, and you couldn't cough up 6 million,
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think? I mean, that's a lot of.
No, I agree. And to your point, though, I mean, the legwork was done. The hard work was done. They took Nancy out of the house. I don't think they just give up on it just because, she's looking bad, unless, that was part of the plan, which it goes back to my thoughts that this is more fantasy based. But Nancy or Savannah Guthrie is paying a lot of money right now. And and we mentioned this before. We don't think that she thinks she's going to find her, but she wants to bring her home. If you are this abductor and you have a financial motive in mind, and you were intelligent enough to get away with it up to this point, you have an avenue here to get paid. You don't have to, as you mentioned, actually fall through with anything, but you could give some information out and say, hey, look, this is really the person. I knocked over the picture of Nancy and her family that was in the hallway, and it cracked on this corner. If you want to know where her remains are, send X amount of money through cryptocurrency. And I mean, she's spending X amount of money as it is already. Let's send some here. But that's not happening. And so I really struggle to believe that this was a financially motivated crime. And I think that, at the time, maybe perhaps people were looking at the Guthries as being suspects, and the video hadn't been out of the masked person. So maybe that was his attempt to take ownership, that this was an abduction, that this wasn't the family members, trying to do some sort of insurance scam or whatever the case may be, that this was an abduction, that somebody did take her. And then, and this was also a means of getting to Savannah. I mean, can you imagine first the picture or that image of the masked person, knowing that that's the person that your mother saw, how tormenting that could be to Savannah. If his goal was to come out on camera so that she could see him and be terrified about it as a form of being tormented, then you can check mark that box, because he accomplished that. I guarantee it. And then he goes on there, and in one of those notes, according to TMZ, that it wasn't just that they had a timeline because something bad was going to happen. Naturally, it was because they were going to take her life. That's
Sure.
another form of tormenting, in my opinion, the victim's family members. And, they waited 3 days before they contacted the media, almost a guarantee that this would be a spectacle, almost as if that's what they wanted. They wanted the media to get a hold of this. They wanted the spectacle. They wanted all this. If I thought this was a ransom thing, I don't think that, the Guthrie family is finding out because Nancy didn't show up to church. I think they're finding out because they got a call, they got a text message, they got an email saying, we got your mom, pay us X amount of money, don't involve the cops. They did everything completely backwards, don't you think?
Okay. So first of all, the first letters came to the local media the day after. So on
I
the
thought it was
second.
3 days.
No, go back and look. I had to double check and triple check. It's the day after the two local. 12 hours later, and I agree with you on this, they didn't get the play, right? Because those local media outlets didn't say anything. They gave the information to the FBI. So nobody knew about it. Then TMZ 12 hours later. So now this is where everybody thinks it's day 3 because it is the 3rd. But remember, she disappeared the 1st, the 2nd, the first 2 notes came, and then 12 hours later. So it's now into the 3rd, which is why everybody's saying 3 days later. The TMZ note comes. So it's actually in very close proximity. And these guys, if it is a wrench style abduction, first of all, they parallel each other. What you're saying, somebody who would want to torment, somebody who would be evil, somebody these wrench guys could give a crap less about any of their people. They cut their fingers off. They beat them. The one up in Scottsdale, they tied these 2 individuals up in their 60s, as I believe, both of them, and beat them, mercilessly. 2 kids that had never even met each other, didn't even know each other, but wanted to make a quick buck. They got seed money from the wrench puppet masters and said they would get a piece of the pie. That was a $66 million wrench attack. Again, very rich people that had been targeted. All the information goes into a package, if you will, to the people that you want to do it. They picked 2 in that case, probably because they were going against 2 people. These people could care less. So you could make that same argument. Oh, it was personal. In other words, if they wouldn't have caught those 2 kids, they were literally like 18 and 17. If they wouldn't have caught those 2 kids and just say, we were in the same situation, everybody would see, oh, it's personal. Look at what they did to them. They beat them up. This was awful, right? So I think they can mirror each other. Somebody who wants a vicious attack for money, like a wrench attacker, is the same as it can mirror each other as somebody who has a personal vendetta. But this seems so much more sophisticated than I ever first initially thought. And I see a lot of levers that say it could be something orchestrated like this.
It could be. I just, one of the things that bothers me about it being multiple people is that with multiple people, and I heard one person say that, the porch guy's just the idiot. He has the gun in the wrong holster, the wrong position. Well, idiots talk, and nobody's talked. Nobody's come forward. I mean, maybe there is a tip in that 50,000 tips that, we talked about earlier on. But up until this point, this idiot has outsmarted the local law enforcement. The FBI has taken over for as much as we can tell, and they haven't been able to solve this to the point where Cash Patel is throwing Sheriff Nanos under the bus. To me, if he's throwing Sheriff Nanos under the bus, that's probably an indication that the FBI is not any closer than they are, and he's trying to, divert blame. Because if they were closer, then that conversation would have been, oh, we got this. We're confident where we're at. We know what's gonna, we are working our avenues. I understand maybe it didn't, start off great, but we're confident where we're at in this investigation. We know we're going to get somebody. No, that's not what he did. He threw him under the bus. Said, hey, basically saying we don't solve this, it's because of him. That doesn't scream any confidence to me. And so to me, I just don't think that the world of this person being incompetent and outsmarting FBI and the sheriff's department and even the $500,000 private investigator team that Miss Guthrie has hired apparently to investigate this, they can't figure it out either. It's just kind of, I don't think those 2 things exist. So I think this guy's probably a little bit smarter than we give him credit for. And I think that could this be financially motivated? It could be. You bring up some excellent points about them contacting the media the very next day. But then you also said that when that got no play, they went to TMZ and essentially that made sure it got play. That's weird. I mean, don't you think that if this was ransom, they would have contacted the Guthrie family? There was another guy who was trying to play off of this. He contacted the Guthrie family, ended up getting them arrested, but he contacted them. Don't you think they would have tried that same avenue?
No. See, Kalela, who was the guy that actually did the text messages to Annie and Tommaso, is an absolute blundering idiot. Easily traceable back to him, text messages. The Bureau got him in a hot second. And by the way, he was released the next day on a $20,000 bond, which cost him $2,000. So they didn't even seem to care about that. But anyway, he's out. I think that is where the sophistication comes into play, because they know if they reach out to them in any other way, they're going to get nabbed. That isn't how these wrench people operate. In terms
They
of
went to the media in the other cases.
No, I haven't found that yet. But again, I'm still in the process of deep diving. You can imagine $183 million in cryptocurrency that's been paid just in 1 year in 2024. Like, I have a lot of cases to deep dive, and a lot of them are very secretive. Even the information you can get, the people are so afraid to be out in the public knowledge that they're withholding, like their John Does and Jane Does, and you know what I mean? Because they're worried about getting kidnapped again or another wrench attack. So it's all, in large part, a lot is kept quiet. So I don't know, because like you said, if it were out in the media, we should know about it. I don't know. But again, I can't find one where the person died. In other words, the people paid up, and you didn't have it end up being this gigantic mystery. But again, I've got a lot more of those situations to deep dive. God, there was something else you said, Daniel, that I wanted to touch on. Your last point you made. I can't remember what it was right now.
Well, I mean, it was just basically that, I would assume they would have contacted the Guthrie family, said, don't contact the police.
And I say they knew not to, for fear they would get caught. But like you said, I need to deep dive other situations. I just can't find one where anybody has died. And so I wonder if that made them take a different tactic. The other thing that I think is a little bit different is you're dealing with Savannah Guthrie and the notoriety. And to me, they're using two plays here. Not only the play of, we've got Nancy and that as a ticket or a card, a joker, but their other joker is this famous woman, Savannah Guthrie, who I believe her appearances and her reputation is very, very important to her. And I think I touched on this earlier, maybe you don't agree, but I see it this way. I think it is embarrassing, humiliating, horrible that it is seen that the Guthrie family didn't pay any money.
I agree. The only thing that at the time, the reason why I thought that it was okay is because I thought maybe they didn't believe it to be real. I questioned a lot of the same things, like, why did they contact TMZ and the media? They basically all but guaranteed law enforcement and the rest of the world would be in on this case, and that eyes would be all over this. I mean, to me, it almost seemed like it was that was part of what they wanted, was for this to be a spectacle, for this to be in the media, for people to be talking about this. That's why you send it to TMZ. And so,
great.
I just don't think that, and that's the part that bothers me about it being something for ransom is you're guaranteeing law enforcement are now going to get involved. It's one thing to talk to the family members before law enforcement is involved and say, hey, we got her. This is what we have. Pay your money, and maybe perhaps they don't contact the law enforcement out of fear, and you get your money. In fact, I think, I don't know if this is to be true or not, but I thought I heard somewhere that the Guthries were prepared to pay it, but they kind of were not told not to, but kind of discouraged from. And so had they reached out to them initially, there's a good possibility they would have gotten paid. They didn't.
No, I actually totally agree with you. And I wonder if it was a breakdown between Porch Guy and, if this is a wrench attack, a breakdown between Porch Guy and the people telling him what to do. And he's like, oh my God, she's dead. I just pulled her out of the trunk. She's dead.
Right.
And they were like, abort. We don't know you. You don't know me. Consider it done. They separate completely, and then the wrench guys continue. And that's why they don't have further information outside what they were initially told, the floodlights and whatever was. And there's a lot we don't know, right? I mean, truly, law enforcement was convinced of this. You know what also bothers me? Do you remember there's approximately 6 notes that were later also sent to the media?
Mm-hmm. And
those 6 notes, if you remember, they're saying, well, they're not addressing them, as people are speculating. And Savannah Guthrie only said the first 2 notes, right, that went to those 3 different sources. But this is my whole point. You haven't figured out who that is either, or you would have arrested them. They use the same modus operandi. They ask for Bitcoin. Their whole, diatribe about, we're pretty pissed that you don't think this is us. And how can anyone say that they're not related when you don't have email addresses or IPs, anything that can tell you who either party are? You can't.
No, it's true. It's true. But, I can assume that if somebody sees that law enforcement are having a hard time, uncovering who this person is because they're using some email stuff, maybe they can, somebody can be confident if they're strong enough in that field to do so the same. But you're right. They haven't figured out who that person is either. I've heard some rumors. Tell you who I think the rumors are. It's actually somebody we were talking about before the show started, because they had a history of doing something like that in other cases.
I've heard it too. Oh my God.
I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not, though.
Just call him Lawsuit himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I don't know if he's smart enough to pull all that off, but maybe so. But my whole thing is the modus operandi in that, right? Knowing to go. And it also, I have got to keep digging, because I'm just wondering how whoever sent those the day after knew how difficult it would be to trace. It's fascinating to me. I mean, that's why I just cannot get off this case. It's such a whodunit. And this is the only prospect that I can make anything make sense, but there's still question marks. You pointed them out. Geez, we only went through one, Daniel.
So we got a couple of chats. Put some stars. We'll do a couple of minutes here of questions. I know we're getting a little long here.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't want to take too much of your time. Dot says, gives $2. Would Nancy have propped the door open for a breeze? I doubt it, but I guess maybe. What do you think? Do you think that door was propped open by the perpetrator, or do you think maybe there's a chance that Nancy may have propped the back door open?
I don't think she would have, because of the javelinas and the wildlife that existed. And we know she knows about it because she discussed, that's why she had the cameras. And, it was really to watch the wildlife and other things. And so I think she would know that that would be too dangerous. And so I don't think she propped them open. I truly think they were propped open by the perpetrators.
I do too. Sherry Lynn comes in with 5 gifted Break the Case memberships.
Thank you.
Cheryl, thank you for being a new member. I appreciate you. Hilde says, thanks for your cool channel. If you like this channel, I have another one, guys. It's called Married to the Hobby. I rip Pokemon cards with my wife. The little shameless plug real quick. Go subscribe. I'd appreciate it. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. We got a little Pokemon giveaway booster bundle for when we get there. So if you guys don't mind going out there, Married to the Hobby. That's the other cool channel I do. Human remains off of I-10 scanner developing. Let's see what that is about.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar about this.
Is that from our friend, though?
It probably is.
Whenever it's from him, I'm so sorry, because I know there's going to be fans of his in here. But anybody who writes, and I actually quoted it, anyone who writes that I'm paraphrasing, that I can make anyone think anything, and then I create news type Twitter handles that look like it's the news. I repeat it, and then I have basically all the idiots following along exactly what I wanted them to think. Anybody who writes that about the people who follow them, I just think it's so mean.
All right. So I don't know how real this is. So
Okay. You mean
this
Lee?
says critical development, search for Nancy Guthrie. The disturbing investigation into the kidnapping of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie is taking a critical turn as
Oh,
searches. Have you seen this?
yes, this is all him. This was 30 minutes away. And this all came around because of the guy we're talking about. So he's 30 minutes away from Nancy Guthrie's. They're calling those pajamas. To me, I looked at it and it looked like a shirt. So
Okay.
it's nonsense.
Yeah, it says that they discovered a pajama top, and that they're saying that according to this, let's see. Well, I don't think it says her pajamas, but I don't know if that's accurate.
Did you see it on the ground? I mean, it looked to me like a plaid shirt. And, there's a lot of illegal aliens that come through this area and homeless camps and things. I see all that stuff they're pulling up there.
Yeah.
And it's 30 minutes away. Can you imagine go 30 minutes in any direction from your house, all the stuff we can find?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know if this is it. This is just something that I had seen.
So you think it could be another one?
Yeah, I don't know if this is something different that's going on right now. I'm just gonna look up Nancy Guthrie and see if on Twitter or an X, and see if anything populates.
I'll look too.
My X is all full of like UFO stuff. My bad, guys.
Have you noticed since they changed the algorithm that now you can't search your own stuff? I'm always wanting to search and find something to resend it when people ask me questions, and it won't let you search as specifically as it used to, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's anything.
So I think this is what they found. I mean, I don't think it's anything.
This I found one day ago.
I think this is what it is. And this is by Dad's Gone Live. Oh, that was May 22nd. So that was a week. That was a little time ago. I'm not seeing anything developing right now.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything on the person we were talking about either, of them saying anything either. Cheryl, if you don't mind kind of sharing a link of what it is that you're referring to, I appreciate that. Thank you also for your membership and for the $10. Let's see.
Yes, that's so nice, Cheryl. Thank you. And thanks for everybody who alerts us to these things so we can double check them. And so good. It takes a village.
And this one's interesting. So Dot says, with all the debacle, could Nanos be involved? I've seen some things where somebody was saying that Nanos was trying to protect, people, and he was framing or hiding evidence. Nanos doesn't have very many friends. I swear, if one person got a whiff that he was doing something illegal or something wrong, that would be out there. He would need the backing of so many people in that department that he just does not have to do anything conspiratorial, in my opinion. What do you think?
I totally agree. Incompetence, I always say, mimics corruption. I think his biggest problem was he wanted to solve this. He wanted his department to solve it, and he thought he could. And 4 days later, he realized, I'm going to have to get the FBI involved.
Yeah. All right, we got maybe enough for two more questions, maybe three more. I don't want to cut anybody off. Sirius asks, do you know, or do we know if the FBI has cleared the family members themselves? I'm assuming so at this point, but I haven't heard anything. Does the FBI ever announce that they've cleared people?
Okay, so two things here. First of all, number one, obviously we know that the Pima County Sheriff put out, this has been months ago now, that the family was cleared, and also said anybody continuing to blame them for this is basically a terrible person. Doesn't have any, remember, it was a very emotional statement. All I'm going to say is this: in every task force I've been on, anything worked jointly, you could not make such a strong statement and not with the FBI is involved and not have their backing. So I 100% believe the backing came from the FBI with that as well. And I'll give you an example with Idaho. Idaho did a clear list every single week. This person's been cleared. And the Bureau was 100% behind those lists, but the Chief Fry, was the one who gave the lists and added the names. He was the voice, but behind them and with them was their partner. And I think on these, something this major, the Bureau is fully behind from my experience.
Got you. And Cheryl said she sent me something to my X account. So let me pull that up real quick.
Cheryl, that's so nice of you. I'll chat. Go ahead.
Or was it mine, Cheryl, or to
Was it
X chat? I don't see anything in my X chat.
Let me look and see if I have anything.
It might be in my let's see, requests. It might be in requests. Ah, here it is. I found it.
Oh, good.
Okay. Accept.
By the way, Sam Lamb 3629, I do agree with you about the positive of the streamers. And I always say both sides. The positive of the streamers is it keeps people talking about the case.
It does. It definitely does. Okay, so here it is. Possible human remains reported near I-10 East exit. Possible foot attack. Whoa. They found remains of somebody out in the middle of nowhere.
They'll have to run it down. You know, there were 4,000 people, and the time frame, I want to say 8 or 9 years. It might have been a little bit less or a little bit more. I'm just going from my memory. 4,000 people in the Sonoran Desert, right near Nancy's house. I mean, that's the desert near Nancy's house. 4,000 human remains. And that's just what's been found. And with animal life and how, you know, a body decomposes in those conditions, it's shocking that I'm sure there's many more, because this is like I said, a main corridor for people who are coming from Mexico. 4,000 it's shocking. So, but I'm not saying that this doesn't have to be run aground. Could be her.
Yeah, it could be. It'd be unfortunate, you know. But if things went awry and she did pass, you know, they would have had to have done something with her. You know, whether that be bury her or something else. So this is possible. We'll keep an eye on it. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for bringing that to our attention. Because yeah, that was not on my my radar at all.
Yeah, me either. Thank you, Cheryl.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it. What do you have going on the rest of the week, Jennifer, that you want to plug in?
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say I did not know you were doing that with your wife. Second, your wife is beautiful. I'd never seen pictures of her before. Third, another thing that Turkey and I have in common, and I call you that because, you know, that's my sentimental favorite name for you, even though your name's Daniel. I love calling you Wild Turkey. Nevertheless, we have Pokemon in common. I have all these Pokemon cards that my son has, and Daniel's been amazing at trying to help me figure out if I have anything, and they're really my son's. He'll get the money if I ever sell them, or if we ever find a cool card that would be worth a lot. So anyway, I'm going to go through each of them. I'll probably ask my husband. I'll beg him to do it because I have some projects. But nevertheless, how cool that you're doing that. That's number one. Number two for me, tomorrow is tomorrow Saturday? No, tomorrow's Friday.
Friday.
Oh my gosh. Tomorrow I am doing a show. It's on Nancy. It's at 10 o'clock in one specific area. Let's see, Monday, I have a new IgG expert that nobody's really heard from. And what I like about her is she's actually, we hear about a lot of the people that, you know, don't do the actual lab work, but she's involved in the actual lab work. So I'm really excited to hear from her. I heard about, or I got to meet her through a special we did on the case. So I'm excited to have her on. And that's on Monday at 10. And then the following Saturday, I'm doing something with Yellow Cottage Tales on Ellen. Yeah.
Good deal. Good deal. Tell Kevin I said hello. It's been a while. I haven't seen him in a minute. And for me, guys, what I'll be doing next is tomorrow night at about 8:30. And Jen, I'm gonna be covering the Richard Allen case. There's been a lot of debate and a lot of people saying that maybe he's the wrong guy. I think Vinnie Politan, I think that's his name. I could be saying it wrong. From mainstream media, he put out a video. I haven't yet watched it about his theories as to why they got it wrong. I'm going to be breaking that down, watching it live, reacting with everybody tomorrow. I have no idea what he's going to say, but I'm going to be open to whatever it is. Me personally, I think Richard Allen is bridge guy. Did he do everything on his own? I have no idea. That was one of the things that I really thought failed the public, was that trial was not public. And, there's a lot of questions. I have them. I know many people have those questions. Maybe there wouldn't be as many if it was a public trial. Maybe so. I don't know. But I'm going to be here tomorrow covering this.
That is so exciting. I mean, this is one case that haunts me, because I am not convinced at all they have the right guy. And usually everybody thinks I'm so pro law enforcement. I'm not pro. I am pro facts. I love
you there,
but I'm pro facts. And when I can't see the facts, I have issues, and I have issues with that case. I have issues with how they handled him. He was handled like no other person ever in the history. And if you can find it, let me know. But I'm telling you, no other person who has just been accused was put in seg in a facility that was what am I trying to say? Maximum security in seg. It has never once happened, and they put him in there, and he went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And then by the end, ended up, saying things that I'm not even sure. I mean, you should see the scribbles and the scratches. Anyway, I've got a lot of problems with him. And the whole bridge video, we were so led astray on that. Okay, I'm sorry. I digress, but I have a lot of problems with that.
The one thing that just kind of sticks out to me is more so the timeline. The initial timeline that he gave, that he got there at 1:30 or 1 o'clock, 1:30, and said that he saw some juveniles walking out. And then they've made contact with the same juveniles who had a picture that they took on a bench that was at 1:26 p.m., about maybe a couple football fields away from the entrance, maybe not even that far, maybe a football field away from the entrance. And, given the time frame that they were walking, taking photos and stuff, it would have aligned with 1:30. And given how long given what he said he did, which is walk from there to the bridge, time's pretty tight. That's the part that kind of bothers me about it not being him, is that timeline of him being there at 1:30 at the entrance of the bridge, and what he said he did by saying that he went all the way to the bridge and looked down. It's really tight for him to get there to the bridge and then back before that one witness that gets dropped off first at the Myers, that sees him on the bridge and then sees the girls as they got dropped off. It's pretty tight. That's the one thing that kind of sticks out to me the most. But I have no idea about this whole like Odinist thing or anything else like that. I looked into it. I think Elvis Fields looks pretty interesting, needless to say. And so I have no idea, and that's why I'm gonna keep an open mind about it, because I don't know all the evidence. I don't know all the information, and I'm going to listen to what some people are saying that think that he's innocent, and go based off of, everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, look at just a couple of things to look at. Look at the geofence. He wasn't there. His phone wasn't there. So the geofence, I mean, they have 3 phones there and they're not his. Look at the van, remember supposedly he mentions the van, but the fact is that would have been in Discovery. So that makes absolutely no sense to me. And then also to understand how and I had an expert on about this that is my go-to expert on the ballistics, because to me, that's what did him in. But the problem with the round, it was a full round. So in other words, it's the whole bullet with the casing and the projectile that was ejected. It had 3 sets of tool marks, meaning tool marks are the ejector and the extractor markings on the casing. When you don't have a round that's shot, you don't have the 3rd factor, which is the firing pin. And that firing pin hits in a particular spot, and it's unique to most guns. That's the most unique part. The extractor is the least, and then the ejector. But what it's like, if you can imagine a cookie cutter. So typically when you fire a gun, because the inertia of that thing going off, it makes these big, big marks, deep indentions that you can compare against other indentions made from that gun. In this case, it was soft, it was ejected. So there's no minutia. So the mark is really light. So if you can imagine a cookie cutter, and maybe that cookie cutter is some sort of smiley face, and then you have another cookie cutter with a sad face, or all these, and you do the lightest indention into the dough, right? Because it's not that hard indention. And so what happens is they had an expert that said, yeah, you know what? That's the same indention. And I've got a huge problem with that, because this isn't DNA. This isn't a fingerprint. This is somebody saying, yeah, that indention looks like that smiley face. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, and if somebody were to ask me, hey, is there a plausible explanation as to why, even if it is, his round, how it ended up there? The guy, according to his statement, was checking the stock market or stock trade or whatever, pulling his phone in and out of his pocket. Is it possible that he dropped a round on the trail and it was found by one of the victims and put on their person that way? It's possible. I mean, especially if he's pulling out the phone. But again, the only thing that just kind of really sticks out to me is that timeline. But I'm gonna listen to what Vinny says and take it into consideration, because I don't know everything in that case, and I'd be wrong to say, oh, I know everything about that, and I'm right and everybody's wrong, type of thing.
Yeah,
and so,
I don't want to talk like that either. I just have a lot of reservations on that case.
Yeah. And so I'm gonna look into it. I think he's the bridge guy. That's my personal opinion. Does that mean he's the guy that planned everything? Is he the guy that did anything else? I don't know. I mean, the thumbnail may appear that I'm citing that he's the wrong person, but I'm not there yet. Just kind of like, is there more to the story on the Bryan Kohberger case here? That wasn't the case in my opinion there either. Watch the video. But I don't know. I think I would be ignorant to say that I knew everything about that case and that they 100% got it right. So I'm going to check it out and make sure that, I get all the information. I'm open to information. You brought up some excellent points that made me completely change my mind, like especially like on the jammer thing. And you mentioned, hey, they would have jammed up the pacemaker. You're absolutely right. It's dropped. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to bring that up anymore. But anything else you want to add before we call it?
No, I just want to say I just love being on your show. We just have such a cool vibe, and we're not always going to agree, but I respect you so much and I respect your opinions. And I just love that we can cuss and discuss crime. It's great.
Yes, no, I love it. It's always amazing to have you on. Thank you so much, guys. If you're watching me on my channel, please go over to Breaking the Case with Jennifer Coffindaffer. You won't be disappointed with all the content that she puts out. If you're watching on Jen's channel, please go join me on Drunk Turkey Show. I think it's the only channel called that, so it shouldn't be hard to find.
Gosh, I love that. I'll never
So,
forget when Daniel first reached out. This was probably been a year or so ago. And
mhm.
you probably maybe even probably 2 years ago. I can't remember. But he said, or his email says drunk turkey, I think. And he said, this is, the drunk turkey show. And I said, why in the world would I go on a drunk turkey show? And I thought, well, I'm a farm girl. This could kind of be. And then, of course, I looked into it and saw it was true crime and had a conversation, and it went great. So I'm sure glad I said yes to the drunk turkey.
I appreciate it. I'm glad you did too. That it was actually through X. I didn't have the blue check mark. I couldn't message you unless I got the blue check mark, so I went and got the blue check mark.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, but thank you so much, Jen. I appreciate you so much coming on tonight. A wealth of awesome information and knowledge, especially when it comes to these investigations with your experience, and brings an awesome perspective to all these cases. So thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you. All the
All
best
right.
to the audience. Bye-bye.
Yes, ma'am. Bye, everybody. See you guys tomorrow night. Be there. All right. Bye, everyone. Peace.